to contribute to the life of a child, for me, is just one of the greatest privileges you could ever have.
It's critical that we respond appropriately and immediately when kids are in distress. I do believe that in one generation you can interrupt the cycle of child abuse.
As we enter the tabernacle this morning, may it be with praise and thanksgiving.
In the dedication of our children, we are reminded that they are God's sacred trust to us. It's the responsibility of each of us, yes, all of us, to make sure that they are loved, cherished, and protected. Protected from an evil that threatens our schools, an evil that threatens our churches, an evil that threatens our society. The video you're about to see will be very disturbing, but unless we're informed about child sexual abuse, we cannot adequately provide protection and a safe environment for our children. We believe that you can make a positive difference in the life of a child. Together, we can make a difference for a whole generation.
The children of the world come to us in so many ways, some through the love of family, but so many others come to us through the lack of family. As the Salvation Army, our mission is to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and to meet human needs in His name without discrimination.
Thank you very much.
Within our programs, we promise to keep our children, so far as we are able, from everything which is likely to harm them, in body, mind, or spirit, and to teach them the truths of the gospel, while encouraging each of them to seek Christ as Savior. At the Salvation Army, we are working to keep all children safe, but we cannot do it alone. It takes parents, guardians, and responsible adults to come together and protect all the children in the community.
We all have a responsibility to keep eyes wide open and to identify areas of potential danger and liability. And if we all take part, then we reduce the chances of someone getting hurt.
They have the beauty and innocence to light up the world. But what happens when someone tries to destroy that light? When Marcus was 13, his youth minister, a man he looked up to and trusted, molested him.
He did everything with us. He took us to the movies, to games. He taught us about God and prayed with us. You know, anytime any one of us had a problem, we knew that John was the one that we could talk to. And then one time my parents, they had to go out of town for a funeral. And John said that I could stay with him. That was the first time he raped me.
We like to think that we would know a child molester if we saw one. But the truth is, when it comes to molesters, looks can deceive. In fact, anyone can be a child molester.
Everything I did was to be around kids. I coached Little League, did volunteer work at my church. I had my brother's kids over, so they'd bring their friends. On Saturdays, I'd always hang out at the water park.
They can be a teacher or coach, babysitter or older child, youth minister or officer, a neighbor or family friend, even a relative, and they don't care who they hurt.
When I was determining what child was a victim that I wanted to offend against, I had a very broad range of victims, from 2 years old to 10, male and female. It didn't really matter to me whether they were male or female, just that I had that thrill, I had the arousal, I had the moment.
The moment was the only thing Alyssa's babysitter cared about. Alyssa was 11 years old when her babysitter started molesting her.
sit next to me in the hot tub, and she'd grab my hand and hold it, or she'd put her legs across mine. And sometimes she'd get me to put suntan lotion on her back, and she would start saying how good it felt. And sometimes she'd do the same to me or give me a massage or something.
She seemed really nice. I just didn't know that this could happen. I still blame myself.
Sometimes molestation takes place over years. Other times it is fast and violent, as it was for Aaron when a boy 2 years older raped him.
We were in the same room the first night. We stayed up late talking, laughing, wrestling. He started pinning me down, and he was a lot stronger than me, and I couldn't do anything about it. He made me do sick stuff.
Now is the time for child sexual abuse to end, and it is up to all responsible adults to stop it.
Whether you're a parent or you're a Corps officer or you operate a program or you're a Sunday school teacher or you're in the band or you're just sitting in the pews, you've got a job to be part of the process in that community at your church. Or whatever you're involved in that has anything to do with kids, you've got a responsibility to be part of that process of moving kids safely into the next phase of their life.
But first, we must be sure to separate the facts from the myths. It is a myth that strangers are responsible for most child sexual abuse. The fact is, strangers perpetrate 10% of child sexual abuse. 30% is perpetrated by family members, and 60% by others who are known to the child and their families. It is a myth that most child molesters are homosexual. The fact is, most child molesters are heterosexual. It is a myth that children usually lie about sexual abuse. The fact is, only about 5% of all allegations turn out to be false. When it comes to abuse, children can't always tell us when they're hurting.
We'd like to believe that kids are going to tell us if they've been sexually abused, but the truth is most of the time they don't. About 40% of the boys who are sexually abused never tell about the abuse, and about 30% of the girls don't tell.
How could I tell? Everybody loved him. I loved him. He said he did it because he loved me. And he said if I told anybody, then we would never see each other again, and he would have to go to jail.
My mom could tell something was wrong when I came home. She kept asking, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" I just wanted to blurt it out, but I was afraid that she would say I should have fought harder, or that it was my fault, that I shouldn't have let him do that to me, and that she didn't love me anymore.
Sexual abuse robs children of their childhoods, and in some cases, it can rob them of their lives.
Leave me alone! How many times I told you?
The reality is, for many children suffering from abuse, the pain will turn to hate. Hate for their parents, hate for themselves, or even hate for God. Some will run away, and when there is nowhere else to run and the pain is too deep, a child may turn to suicide.
I've even tried it a few times to get away from it all.
Even with strong family support, sexual abuse can make a child feel isolated and alone.
Alyssa became very withdrawn from us. It was as if she became a different person. She became quiet and sullen. She didn't laugh. She had no joy. Her activities with her friends just ceased.
I knew I had done stuff that none of the other kids knew about, that they would get grossed out and think I was nasty if they knew about it.
Child sexual abuse has no boundaries. The pain and betrayal hurt the children first, and then it spreads to their families and beyond.
I know there are people that have never forgiven the church, never forgiven their parents. Some may have even said, where was the Salvation Army when this was happening to me? And even as an officer, there have been times I've wondered, did I miss a sign, or should I have done something differently to prevent this from happening?
We know that 1 in 8 males, 1 in 4 females will be affected by this before the age of 18. And their lives will never be the same.
But the important thing to remember is that we are not helpless. We have the knowledge to keep children safe. We have the knowledge to prevent sexual abuse from happening.
Sarah, come here, please.
If we use this knowledge wisely, we will have the skills to protect our children. The knowledge begins with 3 important steps. Watch for the warning signs. Act when you see the warning signs. And teach your children ways to keep safe. We can watch for warning signs not only in the children around us, but we can spot warning signs in adults whose intentions may not be what they seem. Most child molesters will do or say something that gives away what they're truly after. Think of these warning signs as violating a child's physical, emotional, and behavioral boundaries. Physical boundary violations are perhaps the easiest to spot.
That's when an adult starts touching too much, or touching in ways that most adults wouldn't touch a child. Usually they'll start out pretty appropriately, touching in appropriate ways, but then the touch will get less and less appropriate. A pretty common thing that we see is that an adult will start wrestling and tickling and then accidentally touch a child just to see how that child would react.
I get him to wrestle. I mean, what kid doesn't like to wrestle? Playing football. It was really easy to bump into him doing stuff like that and no one would notice.
To push the envelope, I would tickle them, play games, play Ring Around the Rosie and have everybody hold hands and play, tackle Sam, dog pile and Sam, all the kids run and just jump on me. Get it to where the physical contact is acceptable, where the adult doesn't have a problem with all the kids running and jumping on me. And so that, later down the road, when the child is, sitting in my lap or constantly around me, the adult won't be that suspicious because that's normal.
I realize now that she did touch Alyssa a lot. I mean, she couldn't even be around her, really, without holding her or wrapping her arms around her all the time, even when Alyssa wasn't even in the mood for it.
To protect a child's physical boundaries, watch out for adults or even older children who touch children too much. Always want to roughhouse, wrestle, or tickle. Give too many hugs or hugs with too much body contact. Child molesters violate more than a child's body. They violate their mind. They try to control children by playing on their emotions.
We may see this in their behavior where they're seemingly always around, paying children compliments, buying them presents, otherwise pulling the child in and, in a sense, trying to take control over their life.
Well, first thing is I'd let him know how special I thought he was. If he wanted anything, I'd get it for him. If he wanted to go anywhere, I'd take him. If his mom said he wasn't doing his homework, I'd tell him he needed to do his homework, and I'd help him help him. I'd brag on him how cool he was, anything positive I could say to win him over.
Well, I really felt like he loved me. Before the abuse ever started, he was always telling me how special I was or how much he cared about me. All I had to do was ask for something, and before I knew it, he'd bought it for me. And I look back on it now, and I realize why, Why would a grown man be calling a 14-year-old all the time at home or on the weekends or telling me all the time that he loves me?
Chelsea.
Don't let a molester become the center of a child's life. Warning signs that emotional boundaries are being crossed include someone who is spending too much time with a child, calling or emailing a child too often, or just to talk, getting involved in too many of the child's activities, acting too possessive. Many child molesters work slowly with the children they want. They take steps to see just how much they can get away with. Over time, a molester will violate a child's behavioral boundaries.
They get the child to be involved with things or issues that they know the child's parents would not agree with. These things might include pornography, alcohol, or drugs. And their involvement with these things might take place even before a child abuse experience begins. But again, it's an attempt by the child molester to gain control over that child.
We'd go over to his apartment and, he'd start drinking beer. He'd give me like one or two, or until I got drunk. And sometimes we would get into he would want us to get into his hot tub. And he would get in, but without his bathing suit. Then he'd start, sometimes he'd put on porn videos.
Once a child's behavioral boundaries are violated, a molester will use threats as another way to control their young victims.
He had actually threatened to tell on me a couple of times, and I would tell him that if he ever told that he'd get in just as much trouble as I would, that I wasn't the only one doing anything wrong, and he knew what he was doing. And so, in that sense, I held that over him.
These warning signs may indicate a child's behavioral boundaries are being violated. Ridiculing the beliefs of a child's parents, allowing a child to do things against the wishes of the child's parents, offering children cigarettes, alcohol, or drugs, permitting children to look at pornography or visit inappropriate internet sites. But spotting these warning signs is never easy. The face of a child molester has many sides.
Molesters are very skillful at keeping their activities secret. They may act one way in front of adults and another way in front of kids. Sometimes you may not even see something suspicious about the way they act.
And so we must look for warning signs in children. The better you know their routines, the easier it will be for you to notice if something changes or if they start to act differently.
Aaron was always so easygoing. He could laugh off anything. He didn't have a mean bone in his body. But then he changed. He would argue about anything, everything.
If a child starts to complain about activities that they used to like or people that they used to like to spend time with, that child may be giving you a warning sign that there's a problem.
I kept asking my mom if I could stay home by myself, that I didn't need a babysitter anymore. And she'd just say, "You're too young, maybe next year."
When children are sexually abused, often we see a major behavior change. For younger children, we may see an increase in bathroom difficulties. For many children, we see an increase in depression, aggressive behavior, moodiness. Some children will have difficulty in school. Academically, their grades will fall. Difficulties with peers increase. For some children, we also see an increase in inappropriate sexual behavior.
I got very distant from my parents and very moody. Whenever my mom would ask me where I was going, I would tell her it was none of her business. And I would accuse her of not trusting me. I remember wearing makeup and clothes that were too old for me.
Looking back, I think the signs are so clear. How he acted, how he changed. But at the time, nothing was clear. I didn't know the signs. I didn't have a clue what was happening with my child.
Personally uncomfortable.
Learning to recognize the warning signs in the children around you will help you keep them safe. It is imperative that you know how to act when you see the warning signs.
You aren't going to see a child abuser abuse a child. They work hard, working in secret, so that they don't get caught. That's why knowledge of warning signs is so important. If you see a warning sign, you must act.
Alyssa started complaining that she didn't want the babysitter to come anymore. And like I said, I thought the babysitter was really nice, but she just kept bringing it up. So I'd ask her why, and she wouldn't really say. But finally she said that she didn't like the games that the babysitter was playing with her.
If you notice a warning sign, ask your child questions and let them know they can tell you anything.
Hey, are you Juan?
Yes.
And you should never be afraid to express your concerns to the person you suspect or to a person in charge. You have every right to protect your children.
I think it's important to encourage people that even if they don't have irrefutable evidence of abuse, when really all they have is suspicion or a gut feeling that something's just not right, that even in those instances, it's absolutely important that an official be contacted and a report be filed.
Let a person know exactly what your concern is. You can use phrases like, I don't allow Johnny to do that, or please don't do that, or I'm trying to teach my child not to do that. And never let a person's explanation for their behavior make you feel like your concern was unreasonable.
This mom came over to pick up her kid and saw there were 2 other kids over there, and she started asking me weird stuff. Did I have a girlfriend? Why are there sleeping bags on the floor? I made up some excuses, and I never had that kid over again.
Offenders know society's reaction, and so they can mask that reaction and be like, no, that's disgusting. I would never do anything like that, And if the parent can see that the person outwardly is disgusted by it, they would think, oh, well, if he's disgusted by it, then he would never do it.
Come here, baby.
There are times when the best action is to just remove your child from the situation.
I kind of suspected something was wrong, but I wasn't quite sure. If I had asked more questions, if I had checked things out, we wouldn't be in this situation. I should never have left my child alone when I was suspicious.
When you see warning signs is the time to act. Talk to your child, express your concerns, or remove your child from the situation. But remember, if you suspect abuse, you should call Protective Services or the police. We can't be with our children all the time, but we can teach them ways to stay safe when we're not there.
One of the responsibilities that we have as leaders and as parents is to help the kids understand that not everybody's a good guy. Not everybody's someone who's going to nurture them. And we need to make them aware of situations and locations and environments where they may be in potential danger, because we want them to take some responsibility for who they are and where they are and who they're with.
We must teach them about their bodies and how to respond if someone violates their boundaries.
Children need to know the names of their body parts, their eyes and their ears and their elbows, and their private parts. And once children know the names of their private parts, then we can teach them how those parts are different from the other parts of their body, and that most people don't have permission to touch them there. One thing you can do is to use an example of something in your household that the child needs permission to touch, and tell the child that their private parts are like that.
Part of the screening process was finding those kids who didn't understand that their private parts were private. They didn't have a name for them, and they didn't know that people weren't supposed to touch them there. And that made it easier for me to victimize against them.
Children who know about their bodies are better able to tell a trusted adult if someone tries to touch them in unacceptable ways. Be sure to give them specific examples of how a person could violate their physical, emotional, or behavioral boundaries.
I would offend against girls that were wearing dresses, and I'd sit them on my lap and slip my hand under their dress, and the dress would overflow over my legs, and so the adults there couldn't see where my hand was at.
I take them to the mall, shop and buy him DVDs and stuff, and we keep it at my house. And once I got him keeping secrets, lying to his parents, and doing stuff he wasn't supposed to, anything was possible.
Once you've taught your child to watch out for someone who would violate their boundaries, then you can teach them how to respond. You can teach them to tell the person to stop, to get away from the person, or to go to an adult who can help protect them.
He did it for 2 years. Every chance that he could get. And I let him. Or at least it seems like I could have done something to stop him.
Getting children to talk to parents isn't always easy, especially about something as personal as sexuality.
Well, sex wasn't really something we talked about. I mean, how does mom bring that up with her son? We were always close, but I don't know, maybe if we had talked more.
You can make it easier for your children to tell you about sexual abuse if you talk with them about it the way you would any other danger, like crossing the street, or not wearing a seatbelt, or dealing with bullies at school.
Be sure that your children know that they will not be in trouble regardless of what has happened to them, that you love them, that you want to take care of them, and that you'll do everything in your power to keep them safe.
About 2 weeks after I almost got caught, me and Jessica were alone at church again, and I had molested her. And I realized later that I had forgot to reinforce that it was just a secret game. And as soon as her mom showed up to get her, she went and ran and gave her mom a hug, and I heard her tell her mom that Sam hurt by TT.
Ready, set, go!
Keeping children safe from child sexual abuse requires that we all remain vigilant, that we watch for the warning signs, we act when we see the warning signs, and we teach our children ways to protect themselves when we aren't there.
In the mission of the Salvation Army, we have promised to respect the dignity of all persons, and that means providing relevant programs in a safe environment. I believe that together, if we act now, we can not only impact the present for our children, but we can also offer them a glorious future.
If we are to care for them as God intends, we will fulfill our mission to keep our children from everything which is likely to harm them in body, mind, or spirit, so that all our children will grow up knowing they are safe, nurtured, and loved. You can make a difference in the life of a child. Together, we can make a difference in a generation of children.